No man is more professional than I. I am a 1% man. I am not above or below any man. I'm training my mind. I'm building my body. I'm connecting to my soul. I'm investing my money. Welcome to the 1% Man Podcast. Let's go. 3, 2, 1. I want to welcome you back to the 1% Man Podcast. I got my good friend here with me, John, Mr. Hachat, in the house. So what's up, John? How you doing today?
What's going on, man? I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm outstanding. So John right here is a sales monster, and this is my former leader when I worked at Yelp DC. So, and also interesting fact about John does not have a social media, so you cannot connect with him. But I'm pretty sure if I can handle probably 3 objections, I can probably get him to post his email below if you have a question or anything about what John shares today. Is that cool?
Only if you can get through the 3 objections.
Shit. So, you see what I'm saying? This is why you need salespeople on your team, right? But John, for listeners to get to know you better and to know more about you, I want to ask you 3 questions before we get started. Is that cool?
Sure.
Got you. So question number 1, knowing everything you know right now, what is one piece of advice you would give your 18-year-old self?
18-year-old self.
Yes. 18-year-old John Hachat in Nebraska.
The one piece of advice would be, especially with the coming years that you're going to have in your life, there's going to be 100 different things that are thrown your way. Positive, negative, joyful, depressing, exciting, erotic, etc. But no matter what you experience as an individual, the only way that you can, I guess, evolve or progress or move forward is to understand that how you view something that happens to you is so much more important than whatever it is that is happening to you. So your mindset going into any experience that you have, you're able to turn any sort of experience that comes your way and make it the most incredible, eye-opening, enlightening experience that you could possibly have. But recognizing that awareness, that understanding that how you view any particular obstacle that comes your way is totally in your power and can determine how you move forward from it.
Damn, I really like what you just said, because I think more importantly, it's not always what happens to us, but it's how we respond to what happens to us. You know, they always say it's not about what happens in life, but how you respond to life. And the way you put that, I'm probably gonna put that on a t-shirt and sell it and get millions off of that. So no, but
you're welcome for that. Though.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I'll give you the royalties though. You know what I'm saying? 10%.
Oh, dang. All right.
But question number 2, if you had to be an expert in any space that you would like, what would it be and why? If you were like a known expert in any space, Joe Rogan is an expert in podcasting and being a host. I think it's like Brian O'Connell is a interviewer on Fox. I think that's his name. And you know what I mean? But like Jordan Peterson is just a life expert. But, what would you be an expert in and why?
I want to be an author, a professional author. And the reason why is because so much of my life has been molded by the literature that I've read and the nonfiction books that I've read. Quite literally from that period of 18 onward, I started to get so deep into reading and into books, and I was able to have, honestly, near religious experiences with some of the texts that I came across that I viewed like my reading time as kind of like my church time. And it just I was able to learn so much from literature and from nonfiction books and able to form so much of who I am today because of reading that. I have a very large appreciation towards authors and the power of the written word. So for me, it would be to be an author.
Dang. So John, why don't you just write a book now?
Dude, it's something that I wrestle with all the time. There's so much about the creative process that you're in your head about. And that vulnerability of putting your information and what you believe to be a very important piece of art or work out there, and then opening that up to the public and to criticism and whatnot. I mean, that's what trips me up right now, just being honest, is that the fear of the vulnerability. I don't know. But it's a question I wrestle with often. So know that.
I love it because we're definitely going to dive into that. So, last question is, what is one value you believe all men should learn to make it a better place for everyone?
Value value your own personal integrity. So if you say you're going to do something, you should do it. You should always act like how you would want to be portrayed, or you should always behave in a manner that you think that your parents or your loved ones would respect behind closed doors. So just overall, the importance of integrity and keeping that true to yourself and never losing sight of that.
Dang. And why does that make that a better world for everybody?
Well, it's kind of like, it's one of those kind of like a climate change, right? If every single person does their part to try and make the planet a safer and cleaner place, same thing with integrity. If every man and woman out there is focusing on integrity as a core value in their life, then that one by one can help change the world without a doubt.
No, totally love it. Totally love that. So, so as most of you guys know now, so John, very deep with words, and not in deep in a sense where you're just like, oh, this guy's being deep for no reason. But when he talks, it's very much like, oh, I want to listen to what he has to say. So, as you guys can hear, and that's why I brought him on, because John had a great impact on me when at my short time at Yelp DC with him. And there's a quote that he gave me, and I still hold true to today, and I still read it from time to time. Is there's no such joy in the tavern as upon the road there too. So, John, what's that quote, and what does it mean?
Yeah, I mean that's a fancy way of saying that the destination that you're trying to get to is never as great as the trials and tribulations that you come across to get there. So right here in the moment, whatever your goals are for the future, you have a vision or an idea of where it is that you want to be. But right now you're on that road to try and get to your end goal vision. And you may not realize it, but this process that you're in right now, this road that you're on, every emotion that you're experiencing, in every single way that you're growing professionally or personally, right now in the trenches is the most beautiful part of that entire journey. And that's what that quote is getting to.
I so wholeheartedly agree. I think the process of getting somewhere is so much better than actually getting there. Like you never remember like the football games. I don't know if you played sports in high school and college, but like I don't ever remember the football games like the Friday nights. I just remember the process of going to practice. I remember like moments at practice that were fun. Yeah, I don't like even like the end result of having muscles now. Like no, but being at the gym and like remember when I squatted like 350 pounds or 400 pounds. That's when I was like, "Ooh, okay, now that feels good." You know what I'm saying? But actually the end result.
You can squat 350, 400.
Yeah, I used to rep like 405 a couple times, and when I was in college. Now, this is when I played college ball,
Bert.
and like, yeah, I
You
was
were running back, aren't you?
Prime. But no, now.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, exactly.
The running back, y'all.
Hey, what can I say? What can I say, right? But yeah, no, I totally agree. I think the process is 100% enjoyable. So right now, what process are you going through life, and what are you trying to like kind of slow down? Or mainly the best way I can access is there a process right now in your life, and are you enjoying it, or are you learning to enjoy it?
Sure. So this is a one-off. I'm a new uncle to a little baby nephew, and
okay,
my older sister just had her first child, and I mean, honestly, Bert, I'm getting to that age where starting a family of my own is starting to become something that's in the back of my mind, right? So I'm trying to envision what fatherhood would look like for me, what that process of raising a child would be like, because I have no experience whatsoever. I've hardly even held kids before. So the process of being an uncle and learning how to not only try and be there for my new baby nephew, but also be supportive or try and be helpful to my sister, my mom, who's now a grandma, and just trying to learn what it would be like to be a new father for myself as I see my brother-in-law go through the process. And so this is kind of a one-off right now. but that's something that's been at the forefront of my personal life focus is what fatherhood looks like, what I would want it to look like for myself, and how I can try and evolve throughout that the process of being an uncle to better prepare myself for my own fatherhood in the future.
So have you thought about like preparation wise? So how are you preparing for that?
I don't know that it's anything that I'm like preparing for. I'm not reading books or watching videos on how to be a dad, right?
Yeah.
I haven't read What to Expect When You're Expecting, right? But it's just been a new process for me. Just like being around a baby. I literally had never been around a baby before.
Yep.
And trying to learn from how my sister and witnessing the type of mother that she has become, and just the nurturing. Like it's crazy how much people change when they have a kid. And so, like I said, I don't know that there's any tangible process that I can point to, but I have fatherhood on my horizon. I'm planning on it, right? At least sometime in the future. And I'm able to see firsthand through my own family what that process has looked like and how they have grown and some of the troubles that they faced themselves. And so, I think it's more of just like an intangible type of change for me.
Shoot, man. Yeah, I think fatherhood is just, if anything, I think that's like something that I always look forward to. I look forward to it. And I think as much as we may say, even I say I try to prepare for it as much as I can, right? With money, with mindset, with therapy and whatever that may be. But I think still like you can't expect it until it's here, right? You can't really, there's no way to really prepare 100% until it hits you. And then you're just like, oh, now what do I do?
I got a human.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I got to take care of.
Yeah. And I think you've held a baby now, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that, one day, and in the past you were like that small and someone else had to carry you, and you don't much like trust and like, I don't know how to say it, but it's like there has to be a lot of love for someone to really carry you from like you were this small in someone's hand to like growing up to full form now. Like they're, so yeah, it's
1000%.
It's a wild process. It's a wild process.
You're blackout until you're 5 years old. You literally don't remember anything before 5, right? And then after that, you're still totally dependent on someone until you get to a certain age. For most people. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is mind blowing. And until you actually are forced into a situation where you're around a kid or you have your own kid, it's like, it really opens your eyes to just the whole thing is crazy to me. I don't know. So again, that was a one-off, but it's something that's been at the forefront for me for a while now.
Oh yeah. What kind of dad do you expect to be? You want to be like one of them cool dads, or do you want to be like a really stern dad, or you want to be like more chill, laid back? Do you have an idea, or?
That's such an interesting question, because I don't think that you can go into fatherhood with an idea of what type of dad that you want to be, right? Much like I don't think that you could, if you really have an idea of the type of person that you want to become, right? Like if I want to become an athlete or a musician or a philosopher, whatever that may be, then you're gonna try and become that profession or bring on that identity, but you don't ever actually like lose sight of yourself or the type of person that you are. I think is no matter what going to be the type of person that you are to a certain extent later on down the line. So for fatherhood, I don't think that realistically you can go into it and be like, I want to be stern, or I want to be the cool dad, I want to be the sports dad, right? I want to be the popular one amongst all the kids. I don't think you can do that. I think it just kind of organically and naturally you become who you naturally become as a father. But if I had to pick,
you can't just like lay that all on me, but like, but if I had to pick, okay, great.
Yeah. I mean, like ideally, right? You want to be a balance between authoritative, but giving them a lot of freedom to become the type of person that they are. But I believe that if that's what you want to become, then based on the type of person that you are, you may naturally become that if that's who you are naturally. I don't know. That was a complicated question for me.
Yeah, no, I feel it. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm probably gonna be a chill ass dad, but like super disciplined at the same time. You know what I mean? Like the kids are gonna know, like, okay, I can mess with dad, but I can't mess with him too much. But I can talk to my dad about anything. I think that's the one thing I want to know. I want my kids to know that like they can talk to me about anything. And I think I hope to. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think that's one of the hardest. That's one of the hardest emotional levels to connect on with the child, is to get them to. I mean, obviously, they're going to trust you to a certain extent, but to get them to fully believe that they can talk to you about anything at a certain age, right? I think as you got older, you probably got to that point with your own dad, but when you're 16, 17, there's some stuff that you just might not talk to your dad about, right? But ideally you want to but that's how I think of fatherhood, right? Is when my kid is at the age of 16, 17, or 13, 14, they can talk to me about anything, when in reality they're going through so many hormonal changes and like physical changes that it would be very tough, I think, to get to that point as a father. I mean, in an ideal world, yeah.
Yeah, to me, it's like, I think with my dad, I'm not as open with my dad, but I know with my mom, I'm like super open. Like I talk to my mom about like everything, and people are like, "Oh, really?" And I'm like, everything: sex, money, women, everything, right? So, I mean, sex, money, and women. That's like the big three, right? Like if you talk to someone about that, it's kind of like, oh, okay. You would think you would go, to your dad, talk about that, which I definitely do too. But I think for me, at a young age, I didn't do that because I was always ashamed. But I think what I want to instill I hope to instill in my kids is that regardless of how shameful they may feel about something, like, hey, come and talk to me about it. You know what I'm saying? Um, Now I don't know what that looks like, because my kids are you you would hope your kids would quote unquote be like you know what I mean? But then again, I mean, they're gonna have their own experience, their own human experience out here, and then their own family experience, and whatever experiences they have just by their own thoughts and their own, like, running around and running into a wall or whatever, however they feel about doing that, then again. So yeah, I mean, I hope to help them in their change, or how they change and grow, but at the same time, it's like, yeah. What about you? Like, what do you hope to like instill in them? You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's kind of what I meant, based on the first question, is like, you have this ideal image of what fatherhood for you would look like for your child. Um, but I think there's so many different variables that go into who you are as a person, and so many different variables that go into who your child is becoming as a person, that I think it's a rare thing that your ideal image of what fatherhood would look like coincides with how that experience is for your kid. I don't know. I just think there's so many different variables at play.
Like, what do you hope? Yeah, what do you hope to instill in them? You know what I mean? I guess you can say more values wise. You know what I mean? Like, values. What do you hope to like help them to or impart into them mainly? Like, what do you hope to impart into your kids?
When I think about how I would want to raise a kid, I think about what my own experience was like, growing up. And I'm very fortunate and thankful that I had a father that was able to teach me some like core things that he would repeat to me all the time, whether it was based off of experiences that I, talked about at the end of a school day, or just saw that stuff that he saw out in the public. But little things like the importance of education. My parents drilled into me how important education was. And they always say, get good grades. But I took that shit to heart. Like, I really cared a lot about school. And there's a lot of ways that you can cut corners in school, but I cared so much about it because of that value being instilled into me from my father and mother. So, I mean, that would be number one for me to my own kid, would be the importance of education and the value that education can have, your own personal development, and being able to yourself recognize that, hey, I don't know anything about this topic. There's 100 different ways that I can learn about this topic, but then taking that action to learn more about it and having that be a lifelong process for yourself. I just think that's invaluable. Another one that my dad always taught me was like, don't be a fighter. Like, don't be the aggressive person. If you're getting antagonized, or if someone's trying to get under your skin, don't be one who is going to like physically fight. Like, don't be too aggressive. Definitely, without a doubt, defend yourself if you need to, if that situation comes along. But I just remember he always taught me, like, it's better to try and calm a situation through just like logic and talking, and just like working through it with your soft interpersonal skills, rather than physically fighting, which is a random one. But it taught me something more about like the nature of aggression, and just like most quarrels or most issues don't need to be resolved through a physical fight. And I think it's that bigger picture idea that always stuck with me of, figure out how to come to a resolution without having it come to fists or whatnot. And then another one was always just treat people with kindness, man. It's such a simple one, but especially in today's world, there's so much negativity and hatred that is shared, and just angst. Like, you go online and it's super easy to get into a negative hole about how people are acting toward one another and treating one another. And it's like, how easy it is to just be kind to someone else. Like, how pumped are you when you come across someone that is the nicest person you've ever met?
Fucking love it.
Right? Dude,
Exactly,
they make you feel so good. And like, you're smiling. They're always smiling. And you know that they're going to appreciate the time that they had with you. And it makes you want to then reciprocate the way that they're acting towards you. So I think it's such a simple one, but just be kind to everyone that you come across. And that was another thing that my dad and mom always instilled into me, and would be one that I impart to my own kids as well. So probably those three.
I definitely love that. The second one too, because I think something that I've learned. I think I want to say Jordan Peterson said this. I think, but it's like, no, I learned on Joe Rogan podcast. I forgot what his name is, but this dude was like, fighters, like a true fighter doesn't like to fight outside of like the ring and the octagon. It's because when you truly understand violence, right? When you truly understand the impact and what violence can do, you don't want to fight. You know what I mean? You only do it out of like protecting others and whatnot. But true violence, when people are like, oh man, I'm gonna fight you, it's just like, no, you're insecure. If someone that just likes to go around and fight, it's because you're insecure and you don't know how to use your words. So that's why you have to fight, because you want to prove something. But when you truly understand like violence and danger, that's why I always say, and I start to believe this, is I want to become a really dangerous man, because we need more dangerous men in this world. Because when you truly understand danger, you truly understand what that looks like, and how and you understand your ability to just destroy somebody or destroy something or whatever it is, you don't really want to anymore. You know what I mean? Like, some of the nicest guys in the world that hit the hardest that I've ever met on the football field are the nicest guys on the outside. You know what I mean? Like, off the field, they're some of the nicest people in the world. So I totally agree. And some of the most badass, I mean, I've met some special operations guys in the military, nice ass dudes. But then I hear the stories that they tell me, and I'm like, you really just did that? Like, yeah. He's like,
it's
yeah, man.
Wild.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You're just like, yo, this dude's fucking crazy. But but he's sweet. He's sweeter than your grandma.
Right. Right. And you always hear stories about people that meet men like that, just like having a beer with them at a bar. And, they just look like an average Joe, but it turns out that, they've got stories that would keep you up at night for weeks on end. But going off of what you said, it's like, it made me think of going off of the topic of when you understand the power or the effect that violence or just like the nature of aggression can have on the receiving end of it or whatever. It's kind of like, I'm not a big hunter. Do you hunt?
I've tried it once or twice, but no, I don't. I wouldn't call myself a hunter.
Okay. Well, I have a lot of friends who are into hunting, but there was one time I was at a bar with one of my buddies, and he was talking to me about his experience. I think it was deer hunting. And, I was asking him, why do you do it? Like, what do you get out of it? And he explained to me that it was when you have the rifle in your hand and you're looking through a scope at an animal, like a deer, and you have in that moment the ability to play God. And you ultimately are going to determine whether or not that deer is going to live or going to die. And he said it's that God factor that draws him in. That's the sort of adrenaline he pulls from going hunting. But I sort of equate that to someone who truly understands the nature of violence. They understand what they're capable of doing, or just they understand how poorly a situation can deconstruct if they act in an aggressive or a violent nature, and they know what the situation can turn into. And so they have a respect for it they have like an appreciation for what that looks like. And that's why they don't act in that way, like you were saying before. So I don't know that that was ever taught to me as a kid. It was just instilled into me. Hey, you don't need to de-escalate a situation through violence or through physical means. And I kind of got on a tangent there, but
No, I think that's good, because I think people need to, I think people need to talk more and let people flesh out ideas. You know what I'm saying? Because I think a lot of people don't really flesh out ideas when they're talking, right? Whether it's on a podcast or whether it's just in person. Sometimes you need to let somebody like really, when you see someone's gears turning and you just want to like cut in. I've learned more in my life to just shut up, be quiet, and let the gears turn, and then they come back with more. Because sometimes I'm not saying you need a second, but we all need a second sometimes to just flesh out the idea. You know what I'm saying?
for sure. I mean, in this day and age of social media, you know how like conditioned we've become to be able to put, and I don't even have Twitter, but I remember back in the day, it's like I'm conditioned to operate with 150 characters, or I'm conditioned to operate in an Instagram caption, or I'm conditioned to operate as what a Facebook message or post might be, right? And unless you're really taking the time to pick and choose every single word in those posts, and there's no way that you have the opportunity to really flesh out an idea. You're just kind of word vomiting or stream of conscious putting stuff into Twitter, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I appreciate you letting me do this, dude.
No, it's all good.
You were always good at this back in the day, man. You were always so good at letting someone else speak and really taking the time to listen to what it is that they had to say.
It's crazy that I learned that from my own life, because I always for some reason I never felt like I really was even heard, or even when I was little. I can say that. And I always go back to the relationship with my mom. Me and my mom, and even with my brother too, we would always talk. I think my brother would let me listen, but my brother would let me talk. My mom would let me talk and just flesh out an idea, right? So now, like, we sometimes we used to go, we still do, we go on walks, and I'll just talk, and I'll vent, and I'm cursing, and like, it's crazy because you'll see me on the side of the road, my hands like fuck this, fuck that. You know what I mean? And I'm just walking. Yeah. My mom's just like, okay, okay.
Let it out.
And yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, let it out. Okay. But I mean, but the thing is, we had to build a relationship up to that, right? Even with my brother, when we were younger, we would talk back and forth about things. You know what I mean? I still remember conversations that we've had, about different things. And it's crazy because my brother he doesn't say a lot. So when he says something, I always listen, because it's like, oh man, like that was just so hard hitting. Like, I remember one time I was dating somebody, and I was just like, I don't know if I can do this. He was just like, all right, break up with her. And I was just like, oh, really? I can do that? Like, it's just like, but the thing is just like, but when someone that doesn't really speak a lot, but like just really listens to you and listens to everything you're saying and then says it back to you. Now, my sister will cut you up real quick. My sister would just listen. She'll listen. And then after you're done talking, she would like, okay, this is how you need to go fix it. And you go fix it. Right. So yeah, but to go back to the point, but man, I just love listening.
That's funny that it's totally different for your brother and your sister.
Right? Because it's crazy, because in my family, I'm the talker, right? I'm super outgoing. Like, I call myself a black shepherd, right? Because like, I am the one that leads like the going out events. Like, I will go out there, go talk to some random stranger. I'll make friends with I'll know the whole neighborhood, right? And my family will be here for like years on end. I'll come in the first day. Oh yeah, that's Johnny. He lives over there. Oh, that guy over there, he has a truck. Oh yeah, hey, that lady over there, she works at the, I'll go out, and it is not just it's just by who I am, you know what I mean? Just by talking, right, and then letting people talk for themselves. But yeah, man. I guess, let me ask you this. What qualities did you notice, besides like me being able to, talk to people, and listen to them, but like, what other qualities did you notice of, good and bad? You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. Just hit me with good or bad. I think this is going to help the listeners get to know me better too, as well, as an employee too.
Your qualities?
Yeah, my qualities.
When we were working together.
Yeah. Well, when you were my boss.
So the number one quality that I remember of you, Bert, was that you cared, right? You cared about your own individual success, which in sales, if you do not care about your product if you do not care about your own individual development, if you do not care about the client that you're trying to sell to, and I mean truly care about the client that you're trying to sell to, then you're totally hosed throughout the whole sales process. You have to care about like all this stuff. But you cared so much about each, and you cared so much about your own personal development because you wanted to be the best. I mean, you literally told me that you wanted to be at the top of all the lists, right? And so because of that, that was the catalyst for all the work that you put in, all the little stuff that we did throughout the day, all the meetings that we had, all the different little training sessions or little inner team challenges that we did. You cared about all of it. And it bled through so much, right? Like that just became the driving nature of you as an employee. So that was one thing I always loved and respected is I could count on you to care, because a lot of times if you're in a negative situation in sales, it's easy not to care, just kind of write it off and go on to the next day, right? So sometimes you would try and implement feedback without like making the feedback your own. So I would tell you, hey, I think that you could be doing something like this better, or I give you a specific way to try and do something. And then it was like you immediately tried to plug and play that into it, right? Rather than trying to like think about, okay, here's why he might be giving me this type of feedback. Here's what he could have seen that I was doing before. Here's what he's trying to get me to change moving forward. And here's how I can go about doing it. But a lot of times it was like immediately like, here's feedback. And then you would just implement it right then and there in the moment. And it might, like a lot of that stuff, you got to be able to like tailor it to yourself, right? Whatever type of person you are as a salesperson, you got to be able to change it and tailor it to yourself. But yeah, there are times where I'd say you struggle to make it your own, if you will.
I don't even think that's a bad thing. That's not even like, right. Depending on, I think depending on who you talk to, it wouldn't even be a bad thing, right?
Because it means that you're able to take feedback and implement it right then and there, right? It's incredible.
Yeah.
But I think within a sales role specifically, right? If we're looking at that context.
Exactly.
It's super important to make things your own and to put your own person and character into whatever type of process you're trying to learn or improve upon, right? So that was something that I always struggled with.
Yeah, I could definitely see that because the type of employee I am, I'm like, all right, what do you need done? Okay, how do I need to do it? Okay,
right.
And I'll do it exactly how you tell me. And
right.
You'd probably look at me like,
exactly what it was, dude.
I know I said to do it exactly like that, but this is what I really meant because I'm so,
right.
I think for me, it's like I'm so much on communication and clarity. It's like, okay, this is what you need. Okay, cool. I'll do it just like this. And well, you told me to do it just like that. Yeah, I know I said to do that, but not do it like that. I want you to.
Right. So in that sense, it might've been on me to try and, understand that was the type of, just the type of employee that you were going to take the feedback and implement it right away. So I probably should have tried to like change up the way that I gave feedback or change up what I was asking you to do. But yeah, it's funny that you recognize that.
Which is, yeah, I definitely do. Cause, well, I think cause the one thing I started to do more of is understand why you would walk me through certain ways. Like even when we're closing, right? Like asking for the card. You would be like, you would do your hands in a certain type of way. And then I would do my hands in a certain type of way.
I remember that.
Right? You know what I'm saying?
I'd be jumping up and down and like
exactly
and stuff.
So I would do the same thing because I was like, look, I need to feel what he's feeling. You know what I mean? But then there's also like the one thing I love is how you would tell me, okay, ask for the card, now shut up. And it would just get dead silent. And then you would hear the person like turn, and they'll be like, okay, hold on, let me get my card. And I'm like,
yep.
It's about to close. Like quietly you're just like, it's okay, Bert, don't worry, you got this. Okay. All right, close. Well, I mean, all right, now hang up.
Especially with someone who is somewhat, especially in that sales role, it's so easy to like over talk or just like nervously start giving more information than is needed at all.
Exactly.
Throughout the close. And like, so often it's just like, no, you shut up and you let the silence do the work. The silence will literally do the work for you.
Yes. I learned that. My bad.
Go ahead.
No, I said that I learned that as well. Like just like silence is a good thing. It's not a bad thing, especially in sales. I always felt like I had to sell people into things, but I'm like, no, people just sell themselves all the time. Just shut up, let people sell themselves. Don't be that person at the in the mall with the perfumes or the lotion when they're like, hey, you're just like, no, I don't know.
It's just the fly you're trying to swat away. It's super easy to fall into the trap of assuming that the person on the other end of the phone, the client that you're selling to, doesn't isn't qualified or smart enough to be able to come to conclusions on their own. And so when you assume that as a salesperson, then you fall into the trap of overselling or over talking, which is the worst thing that you can do. It's literally shooting yourself in the foot. The people on the other end are smart enough. They're able to work through a lot of the information that you're presenting them. It's just your responsibility to be the vehicle to give them that information in the most efficient manner possible.
Exactly. Now you've managed people at a high level. So and at a Fortune 500 company, right? Yeah, it's a Fortune 500 company. So
yeah,
talk to me about managing people. What is like 3 things, or what's the biggest thing you've learned about managing people? In terms of managing people, and then actually something else. But for yourself, managing people, what's the biggest thing you've learned, or what sticks with you or resonates with you now? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I want to say it was like 2 parts. And the number one thing, and I read it in one of the books that they provided us with to prepare for making that transition from sales to people management. But the number one thing that I had to learn was that, when you make the transition from being a top seller to being a manager, you are one of the better candidates, one of the better reps at the company. You're used to seeing success, and you're used to one type of way of seeing success, i.e. making sales, right? And you know how to make sales. But when you become a people manager, you are literally doing that, right? You're managing people. And that's a whole different ballgame. You're no longer managing sales. You have to be able to create individual relationships or build a foundational trust with the team as a whole and each member on your team. And it's a sharp learning curve in trying to figure out how to do that within the context of sales. You have this background or this history of a strung together months of success. And so you assume that automatically builds a foundation of trust with the people that you're managing. But that is not the case. Much like a lot of sales is just the person buying from you, not buying the product. Same thing with the people that you're trying to manage. These people need to buy into you as a person, not you as a previous sales rep. And so for me, the number one thing was just understanding how to develop an individual relationship with each member on my team, and then how to further nurture that relationship so that there's a continued trust between us, so that they would implement feedback or want to continue to work harder or whatever it may be. But that's definitely a sharp learning curve if it's your first time going into people management, without a doubt.
Oh man, yeah, that is so true. I think the individual relationships and understanding that everyone is such an individual, and no matter, like, you can't take all your sales skills and just like open somebody's head and dump it in them, right? As much as like I would have loved to just like open John's head and just take all that and be like, okay, now I can go close all these sales and be super victorious. But I think something I had to learn, and you touched on before, is that I had to make everything my own, because how you said it versus how I said it would hit different, right? And I had to learn how to blend that in my personality. So for yourself, what do you think was like the biggest key of like biggest area of growth once you started managing people that you had to say was like a weakness? So we'll touch on a weakness and a strength. Like, what would you think was your weakest thing? What do you think was your strongest in managing people?
This actually kind of goes back to the conversation that we had about fatherhood earlier. My biggest weakness when I first started out as a manager was that I wanted to be the cool manager. I wanted to be the guy that people liked and wanted to be around, and just thought was like a cool team to be on, a fun team to be on, right? And the cost that came with that was a loss of respect. People just thought of it as a fun time rather than a time that they could be there to make money. And it's actually a super common trap for new team leads or people that are going into people management. It's a very common trap to fall into, to want to be the liked and cool boss, if you will. And that really cost me, because numbers fell behind, production fell behind. And then I was stuck trying to like fight to catch back up to get to a point where I had a team that didn't just think that, I was the fun manager, but someone that they respected and wanted to work hard for. And so I bring up that with relation to fatherhood, because it makes me think, well, maybe I don't want to try and be like the fun, cool dad. Maybe I just want to be the authoritative figure, the one that they're going to respect, and just naturally through the father, son, daughter relationship, love and fun comes later on. That's a side note. My strength, I think one of my strengths was being able to recognize strengths and weaknesses in others, and being able to coach to the strengths and build up the weaknesses, and being able to identify both for each rep. Like a lot of people, it's easy to, when you're a salesperson, you can't be 100% aware of all of your strengths and weaknesses. And you can be blind to a lot of the different habits or just various things that you do on a call that other people are able to take note of. And so I think one of my strengths as a manager was being able to identify strengths, compound upon those, and then identify weaknesses and make people very aware of those so that they can continue to work on those as well.
So I can actually say I can talk on this, because I remember when I was talking to some business owner, and he was telling me about like how much money he was making, how much it was going to cost. And you specifically told me, like, Bertrand, you said, Bert, when he says a number, just act nonchalant, like it doesn't mean anything. Just keep going. I was just like, oh, okay. So he'll say no. And then after that, I took on other sales calls, but it really hit me more when I started. So I had a little sting in insurance, did very well, made a lot of money, but people will tell me like, oh, I already have insurance. And I'm just be like, oh, okay, cool. So this is what we're going to do. And then because I wasn't like, oh my God, you already have like $500,000 in insurance. Like, oh, you don't need this. It's just like, oh, okay, cool. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to add to this policy and people just be like, oh, okay. So I guess I don't know what it does, but it's like, it almost makes the person just be like, oh, he can talk money.
Yeah.
It doesn't phase him, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, they have this idea in their mind of what they think is super important and impressive and has led to their own success. And it sounds bad to say it, but if you kind of belittle that, then it puts them in their place and helps them realize, oh, I do still have ways that I can improve, or this guy still has information that I can potentially benefit from. Yeah, it's a weird, like, little psychological warfare almost.
100%. Because the more when people, I think more now too, even relationships, when you talk about money, I can see where people get emotional, but it's like relationships. But in the business world, when you talk about money and you just make it kind of like it's just a conversation, it's a lot more respected, because you're not pulled. I've talked to business owners and I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, I had a 10K week before, and they're like, 10K, oh my God. And I'm just like, okay, maybe let me, okay, let's not talk about this. You're too, like, you're too up and down. But when I've met people that, like this dude I literally made $250,000 in a month. And I was just like, oh, okay, cool. So how are you going to improve and, make more? He was just like, the conversation naturally flowed. Back in the day, Bert, before I would have, like, John corrected me, I would have been like, how the fuck did you make $250,000? Like, who the fuck makes $250,000 in a month? Like, how do you do that? So, but I think now calm and cool. So yeah, what benefits have you learned in like your personal life from cold calling and sales as well? Like what benefits do you have, or do you think you've taken away from sales and cold calling?
Yeah, two that immediately come to mind is having thick skin, which also goes back to your first question that you asked me about what I could go back and tell my 18-year-old self. The ability to have thick skin and brush off anything that someone says to you or throws your way. It's just like, it's a continuance of that mindset ideology, right? Where you're able to take whatever is coming your way and view it in whatever way that you want to view it, in a positive light, in a negative light, whatever it may be, and then move forward from there. And if you can't do that, okay, if you don't have skin, then it's going to bog you down and be a weight around your ankles for whatever you're trying to do moving forward. But thick skin is definitely one that comes to mind. It's like the old sticks and stones analogy, right? And then the other one was being able to try and be a chameleon with whoever it is that you're speaking to, in terms of like Are they in a good mood? Are they in a bad mood? Do they want to talk about themselves or do they want to talk about you? What sort of topics are they interested in? What are they not interested in? What are they informed on? What are they not informed on? And being able to pick up on these little cues or recognize that within a conversation and then either accelerate in one direction or avoid a different direction. Cold calling forces you to do that, right? When you're calling a bunch of different industries, when you're talking to a bunch of different types of people, different economic statuses, different cultural backgrounds, or whatever, you've got to be able to adapt who you are in the conversation with the person that's on the other end of the phone. And I mean, that goes fucking miles in the real world, right?
Oh, hell yeah. Agreed. I think that was the hardest thing. Well, I think that was like the best and the hardest thing is that when you're cold calling every day, relationships now on the outside were almost like sales calls. And I was just like, oh my God, I don't want to talk to people right now just because like I'm so like analyzing every conversation, trying to pick up on cues. And I'm just
Right.
like, oh, well, I'm about to close them. Okay, I'm not about to. Okay, they're mad. Okay, they need more. And I'm just like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I think sometimes I just get, if you ever find yourself just get too invested into what you're doing in the job and it comes home and you're just like, you need to disconnect.
Sure. It takes like the human element out of it, right? If you become so absorbed by the work that you do and you forget the type of person that you are, or, the type of person that you want to become in your personal life, it without a doubt can carry over, especially in that grueling cold calling environment that we were in, right? I mean, that's about as tough as it gets. Making that many calls a day, every day, right? I mean, that's without a doubt tough. That would be tough for anyone. And you can lose sight of who the type of person that you are when you go home. I mean, it kind of goes off of what you were saying about not wanting to talk with people, right? Sometimes you just want to go home and sit on the couch and turn your brain off, if you will. So yeah, in a lot of ways, it can have that negative effect.
True. So tell me before we go, what books are you reading now, or what book are you reading now?
I'm reading *Sapiens* by, I'm gonna butcher, I don't know his full name, but it's by like Yuval Noah something. It's been on like the prominent bookshelves or one of those bestsellers for a while. I want to say it was written in like 2016. But it's just like a brief history of how humanity evolved, just in terms of like anthropologically and like through religion, through the building of dynasties or empires, through the advent of farming and like mass production of food, right? It just covers a huge history of humanity and how we got from where we were 60,000 years ago to where we are today. It's super interesting, and it's honestly written in kind of like layman's terms, so it's not very complicated. There's another very famous book on the same topic called, I think it's Guns, Germs, and Steel by Jared Diamond, which, a lot of history nerds view that book as kind of like their Bible, because it was one of the first that talked about why humanity spread from the Middle East and Africa in the way that it did across the rest of the world. So that's another book that I recommend. That's definitely a much drier and a little bit more of a coarse read. But this one, *Sapiens*, is in layman's terms. It's fun, funny at times, and he's brought some stuff up that kind of challenges your own way of thinking. So I've enjoyed it so far.
Dope.
*Sapiens*.
That's what I'm talking about. *Sapiens*. So I will definitely try to get that on the show notes as well. I'll get my team to put that on there. So, John, I appreciate you, man. For real, this was good. This was definitely good.
You too,
So
Bert.
this is something that we like to do here at the 1% Man, is we like to give the interviewee, the last word. So could be an affirmation, a mantra, a story. It could be whatever it is, but something that you want us to carry with us before we go. What is your last words, John? Hachat?
There's no such joy in the tavern as upon the road there too. I think that's it, man.
I love it.
You had that written down on a sticky note from when I told you that, what, 2 years ago?
Yes.
Literally, pen on sticky note right there. You took that home with you, and that has stuck with you. I love that, because I swear that quote has stuck with me as well. I think it sums up anything that you can be going through in life perfectly. whatever you're doing right now, recognize that you're in the thick of it, you're in the trenches, and enjoy it. Literally enjoy the trenches while you're in them.
Exactly. I totally agree. Totally agree. John, thank you so much. And listeners, thank you for listening. And remember, your legacy starts today. Thank you, my friend, for tuning into today's episode. This means so much to us over here at the 1% Man community. Now, we want to extend a hand of gratitude to you. So I have a free gift for you. All you have to do is go to www.the1percentman.com/podcast gift. This is an exclusive gift for listeners that tune into our podcast. So go over there, get that free gift as well. And now I have 2 simple acts of you. 1, hit that subscribe button and leave us a comment and a 5-star review, because that helps us to see what you love about the podcast, and that helps us to bolster up in the rankings so more people can find us and listen to this pertinent information that we have for men of today's age. Last but not least, I want you to go back and listen to this podcast. Find just one thing that you can implement in your life today so you can move forward. Remember, progress over perfection. And till next time, my friend, your legacy starts today.